Look at the world around you today. It is a world engineered to fracture your mind. Everywhere you turn, there is a demand for your anger, a trap for your attention, and an invitation to feel offended, victimized, or weak. Most people walk through their lives completely exposed to these external forces. A single insult ruins their entire day. A sudden change in plans throws them into a panic. A period of hardship causes them to abandon their dreams and retreat into comfort. They believe they are free, but in reality, they are psychological puppets, dancing to the tune of whatever circumstance hits them next. But imagine a different way of existing. Imagine possessing a mind so profoundly anchored, so ruthlessly disciplined, that nothing outside of your own skull could ever shake your peace. Imagine looking directly into the eyes of chaos, betrayal, failure, or loss, and responding with absolute, unwavering stillness. The ancient Stoics did not view this kind of mental resilience as a genetic gift. They viewed it as a fortress that must be aggressively constructed, stone by stone, through the deliberate practice of inner power. They understood that the world will never stop breaking against you. But whether you shatter or stand firm like a mountain is entirely up to you. This state of being is not about hiding your emotions or pretending to be numb. It is about cultivating a supreme psychological immunity that renders you completely untouchable to the storms of life. This is not a superficial list of life hacks or a temporary motivational speech designed to fade after 5 minutes. This is a continuous, uncompromising guide to rebuilding your consciousness from the ground up. We are going to strip away the illusions of modern softness and enter the deep, demanding world of Stoic mastery. If you are ready to stop being a victim of your environment, eliminate every single distraction, listen to the depth of this narrative, and let this truth forge your mind into iron. The foundation of an unbreakable mindset begins with a radical, uncompromising realization regarding the true nature of human suffering. The philosopher Epictetus laid down the ultimate law of inner power when he observed that humanity is disturbed not by things that happen, but by the principles and notions which they form concerning those things. When you experience anxiety, anger, or despair, your immediate instinct is to look outside of yourself. You blame the person who disrespected you, the economic conditions that ruined your plans, or the bad luck that altered your path. But this is a profound psychological illusion. An external event is inherently neutral. It possesses no moral weight, no voice, and no inherent power to harm your soul. The harm only exists the moment your mind applies an interpretation to that event. If someone insults you, they have merely vibrated the air with sound waves. The insult only gains life because your ego accepts it, internalizes it, and decides to feel hurt. The moment you understand that you are the sole author of your emotional state, you strip the entire world of its power over you. You cease to be a helpless reactor and become the absolute sovereign of your internal kingdom. This shift in perspective requires you to constantly maintain a clear psychological boundary between what is within your control and what is completely outside of it. The Stoics referred to this as the dichotomy of control, and it is the single most important tool for preserving your mental energy. The vast majority of modern anxiety is born out of a foolish attempt to control things that belong entirely to fate. You cannot control what other people think of you. You cannot control the outcomes of your efforts. You cannot control the past, and you cannot control the inevitability of change. The only things that truly belong to you are your own thoughts, your own intentions, and your own actions in the present second. When you obsess over external outcomes, you make your happiness a hostage to fortune. An untouchable mindset operates on a fundamentally different principle. You detach yourself completely from the results and invest 100% of your soul into the execution. You work, you build, you fight, not because you are guaranteed success, but because acting with excellence is the duty of your highest self. If the universe smiles upon your efforts, you accept it with humility. If everything collapses into dust, you stand amid the ruins with your character fully intact, unbothered by the verdict of fate. To sustain this level of inner strength, you must actively dismantle the habit of self-pity and eliminate the word excuse from your vocabulary. The human mind is incredibly skilled at creating narratives that justify its own weakness. When faced with a difficult task, a heavy loss, or a period of intense laziness, your lower self will immediately try to convince you that your circumstances are too unique, too painful, or too unfair for you to act with discipline. But Stoicism demands that you look directly into the mirror of reality without any filters. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius did not govern from a place of comfortable isolation. He led an empire through a devastating global pandemic, faced constant political betrayals from his closest friends, and spent years living in muddy military camps on the brutal northern frontier. Yet, when he sat down at night to write his private journals, there was not a single line of complaint. He reminded himself that the impediment to action advances action, and what stands in the way becomes the way. This is the essence of amor fati, not merely tolerating the difficulties of life, but actively loving them as the raw material required to forge your greatness. A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor, and a life without friction will never produce an unbreakable mind. Every obstacle in front of you is an invitation from destiny to test your calluses and reveal your inner power. This internal callousing cannot happen in an environment of total comfort. We live in a society that treats comfort as the ultimate goal of human existence. Yet this endless pampering is precisely what makes us psychologically fragile. When you are protected from every minor inconvenience, your threshold for suffering shrinks until the slightest bit of friction feels like a tragedy. To counteract this decay, you must intentionally incorporate the practice of voluntary discomfort into your daily routine. The Roman philosopher Seneca advised his wealthy friend Lucilius to set aside a certain number of days every month to eat the cheapest food, wear rough clothes, and ask himself whether this was the condition that he feared. By intentionally choosing the harder path, by waking up when your body begs to sleep, by fasting, by working through fatigue, or by stepping away from the endless noise of digital stimulation, you are conducting a necessary experiment. You are proving to your primitive brain that you do not need luxury to survive, and that you do not need validation to be whole. You are teaching yourself to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. When real adversity eventually enters your life, as it inevitably will, it will not shock your system. Your mind will recognize the cold, the isolation, or the stress not as an existential threat, but as familiar ground where you have already trained 1,000 times before. This radical discipline must also be applied to your social interactions, shielding your inner sanctuary from the corrupting influence of external opinions. One of the greatest vulnerabilities of the human condition is the desperate, almost addictive craving for validation. We dress for the approval of strangers, we speak to appease the crowd, and we shape our identities around the fluctuating praise of an unstable society. The Stoics looked at public opinion with absolute skepticism. Epictetus asked why we should value the compliments of people who do not even know how to govern their own minds. When you allow someone's praise to make you happy, you automatically give their criticism the power to make you miserable. To become mentally untouchable, you must cultivate a quiet, deeply rooted self-respect that is entirely independent of the crowd's applause. If people speak well of you, it changes nothing about your internal worth. If they mock you, hate you, or gossip behind your back, it changes nothing about your duty. You must become like a solid gold coin dropped into the mud. No matter how much dirt is thrown upon it, its intrinsic value remains completely unaltered. Let the world shout, let the critics judge, and let the small-minded complain. Your validation comes from the quiet approval of your own conscience at the end of a hard day's work. This mastery is ultimately cemented by maintaining a constant, vivid awareness of your own mortality. The practice of memento mori is the ultimate filter for human triviality. When you live under the illusion that your time on this earth is infinite, you allow your mind to get bogged down by petty anxieties, minor arguments, and the paralyzing fear of failure. You waste hours scrolling through digital garbage, days harboring grudges, and years waiting for the perfect opportunity to change your life. But death is not an event that happens only in the distant future. It is happening right now, second by second, as time moves continuously into the past. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that he could leave life right now, and that this thought should determine what he did, said, and thought. When you view your daily life through the lens of your impending death, the weight of the world instantly lifts. The anxiety of taking a major risk vanishes. The urge to procrastinate disappears. The anger you hold towards someone who wronged you seems absurd. You realize that you have a very limited number of breaths to draw, a finite number of mornings to see the sunrise, and an urgency to execute your purpose with absolute intensity. As you leave this silent space and return to the noise of the world, carry this inner fortress with you. Do not wait for your circumstances to become ideal, and do not expect the people around you to change. The world will continue to be chaotic, unfair, and demanding. Your power lies not in changing the wind, but in how you set your sails. Wake up every morning with the clarity of a stoic warrior. Guard your thoughts. Embrace the friction. Love your fate. And remember that an untouchable mind is built in the quiet, unseen moments of relentless discipline. Stand firm, stay unmoved, and let your power speak through your silence.